Don't come inside here. You don't belong here.
Please stop. I'm heavily pregnant. I just need a shelter.
Can't stay here. Leave now.
Please, I'm begging you.
What would you do if you walked into a restaurant you owned, a building your name is on, a place your money built, heavily pregnant, soaked to the bone, just looking for somewhere warm and dry to sit, and the people working inside looked at you like you were nothing, dragged you back into the rain, and called the police on you, not because you did anything wrong, but simply because of the color of your skin? Welcome to Black Diamond's story. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and stay till the end. You don't want to miss how this one lands. Get out, we don't serve your kind here. The words land before the door has even fully closed behind her. Amara Johnson stands in the entrance of Jang's, one of the most expensive restaurants in Seoul, rainwater running from her coat onto the polished marble floor in a slow, steady drip. She is 34 weeks pregnant. Her luxury sedan broke down 2 streets away 20 minutes ago. Steam rising from the hood, rain hammering the roof, her driver unreachable, her phone dead before she could call anyone else. The rain came the way Seoul rain comes in October, without warning, without mercy, cold and relentless, and soaking through everything it touches. She had stood beside her broken-down car with one hand pressed against her lower back and the other resting on her belly and looked up through the downpour. Across the street, warm golden light bled through floor-to-ceiling glass windows. Laughter from inside. Music. The smell of food. People sitting at candlelit tables with wine glasses and white linen napkins, completely untouched by the storm outside. Her restaurant. She owns 60% of it. She exhaled slowly and walked toward it through the rain. The receptionist's name is Park Soo-ah, 26 years old, 2 years at Jang's. She looks at Amara the way people look at things that don't belong, quickly, completely, a decision made before a single word is exchanged. She doesn't fully meet Amara's eyes when she speaks. She doesn't need to. The dismissal is already finished before it begins. Get out, we don't serve your kind here. Amara blinks once, slowly. She looks at Soo-ah for a moment and then speaks in a voice that is completely controlled. I'm not here to cause trouble. My car broke down. My phone is dead. I just need somewhere to sit until the rain slows down. Soo-ah finally looks at her fully, takes in the wet hair, the expensive but soaked coat, the very visible pregnancy. Her expression doesn't soften. If anything, it sharpens. Her eyes travel slowly and deliberately from Amara's face down to her belly and back up again in a way that is designed to make a person feel examined, reduced, assessed, and found lacking. This is a private establishment, Soo-ah says. We have a dress code. She lets the pause sit there just long enough. You don't meet it. Right behind Amara, the door opens again. A Korean couple steps in. The woman is in a fur coat, the man in a tailored suit, both of them completely dry beneath a shared umbrella. Soo-ah's entire face transforms in the space of half a second. The cold assessment disappears. Something warm and practiced and professional takes its place. Welcome, welcome. Right this way, please. Your usual table is ready. They are seated immediately. Menus placed in their hands. Wine list offered. A waiter appears from nowhere to take their coats. Amara watches every second of this. She doesn't move. She doesn't look away. Then she turns back to Soo-ah and says clearly and without raising her voice, I would like to speak with your manager. Soo-ah's jaw tightens. She leans forward on the desk slightly and drops her voice in a way that is somehow worse than if she had shouted. The quietness of it is deliberate, intimate in its cruelty. You walked in here dripping water everywhere. You're disturbing our guests. You're making a scene. She looks Amara up and down one more time. I don't know where you come from, but in this restaurant we have standards. She straightens. You don't meet them. I'm asking you politely to leave before I stop being polite. A waiter passing nearby slows down. He catches Soo-ah's eye and she tilts her head almost imperceptibly toward Amara. He understands immediately. He stops pretending to work and simply watches. A moment later, he leans toward a colleague, and the two of them speak quietly amongst themselves in Korean, heads close together, voices low, believing completely that the soaking wet black woman standing at the reception desk cannot understand a single syllable of what they are saying. Amara understands every syllable. She has lived in Seoul for 4 years. She learned the language in the first 18 months the way she has learned everything in her life, quietly, completely, without announcing it to anyone. She stands there and listens to what the waiter says to his colleague and what his colleague says back. She listens to Suah add something when she glances over and joins them. She hears the laughter that follows. She hears exactly what they think of her, what they assume about her, what they find funny about a pregnant black woman standing in their lobby asking for basic human decency. She doesn't react. Not a flicker, not a single muscle in her face moves. She has learned that too. The particular discipline of being a black woman in spaces that do not expect you and do not want you and make that known through every available channel, including the ones they believe you cannot access. You learn to take the hit without showing where it lands. You learn to keep your face smooth and your voice level and your hands still because the moment you react, they will make your reaction the story and bury everything that caused it. So she stands there with her hand on her belly and her face completely composed, and she waits. More staff have drifted toward the reception area now. A second waiter, a hostess. They are not pretending to be there for any other reason. They are simply watching. One of them has a phone out, held low, the screen lit. A customer at a nearby table turns to look, then another. Someone at the bar has shifted on their stool to see better. Amara looks at all of it, at the phone, at the faces, at the specific quality of the attention being paid to her, the way people watch something they find amusing, something they feel comfortable watching, because the person being watched is not someone they have decided to see as fully real. The manager arrives. His name is Choi D-young, 42 years old. 15 years in luxury hospitality across Seoul, Tokyo, and Singapore. He's the kind of man who has spent his career learning how to make people feel welcome or unwelcome with equal smoothness, and he cannot always tell anymore which one he is doing. He approaches Amara with his hands clasped in front of him and a practiced expression of patient concern that reaches nowhere near his eyes. "I understand there's been some confusion," he says. His English is precise. His tone is the kind used for difficult situations that need to be resolved quickly and quietly without disturbing the atmosphere. "There's no confusion," Amara says. "I came in from the rain. I asked to sit down. Your staff refused me. I'd like to understand why." D-young's smile doesn't waver. "I'm afraid our restaurant is fully booked this evening. We simply don't have the capacity for walk-ins." Amara looks past him, at the empty tables. She counts 7 of them clearly visible from where she is standing. She looks back at him. "You have empty tables." The smile drops, just at the edges, just enough to show what's underneath it. Those are reserved. He takes a small breath. "And to be honest with you, the manner in which you've come in here, the disruption to our other guests, the state you're in," he pauses, looking at her wet coat, her hair, her belly, with an expression of distaste that he almost but not quite manages to disguise as concern. "This isn't the right environment for you. I think it's best if you leave now, for your own sake." "I'm pregnant," Amara says. "It's pouring rain outside. I'm asking for a chair and 5 minutes." D-young looks at her for a long moment. He looks at her the way people look at problems they have already solved in their minds and are simply waiting for the physical world to catch up. Then he looks past her shoulder and nods once. The 2 security guards come from either side of the entrance. They are large and they move fast, and they don't announce themselves or ask questions. One of them takes hold of her arm before she has even registered they are there. She flinches hard. The shock of it, a stranger's hand on her body, the roughness of the grip, the complete absence of hesitation, goes through her like cold water. "Don't touch me." Her voice is sharp now for the first time. "I'm pregnant. Don't touch me." He doesn't let go. His grip tightens, and he begins moving her toward the door with the practiced efficiency of someone who has done this before. The second guard moves to her other side. "Please," the word comes out differently than the others. Quieter. Something in it that she hasn't let into her voice until this moment. "I'm 34 weeks pregnant. Please don't do this." The guard is looking straight ahead at the door. He says nothing. The restaurant has gone quiet. Not completely. The music is still playing softly, cutlery still meeting plates somewhere, But the ambient noise has dropped away, and in its place is the particular attentive silence of a room full of people watching something happen and choosing not to intervene. Heads have turned. More phones have come out. Nobody is pretending anymore. They are simply watching and recording openly, because the woman being dragged across the floor has been designated as someone it is acceptable to watch and record. They pull her across the marble. Her shoes squeak against the wet trail she left when she came in. Past Sua, who is standing with her arms folded and her chin slightly raised. Past the table where the couple in the fur coat and the tailored suit are watching with blank expressions. Past a woman near the window who has her phone raised and is filming steadily and will later caption her upload with laughing emojis. The door swings open. Rain crashes in. They shove her outside. She stumbles forward. Her right hand shoots out and finds the wet metal railing beside the entrance steps. She grabs it. Her fingers close around it so hard she can feel the cold of it in her palm. She stops herself. She steadies. Her other hand is pressed against her belly. Flat, fierce, instinctive. She stands there. The rain hits her immediately, cold and hard and completely indifferent. It soaks back through the coat that had barely started to dry inside. It runs down her face and into her collar and plasters her hair flat against her head. She is standing on the pavement outside a restaurant she owns 60% of in the pouring rain, 34 weeks pregnant, both hands shaking. She looks down at her hand on her belly, at the way her fingers are spread wide as if covering as much surface as possible, protecting. She breathes, in, out. She breathes the way she has learned to breathe in moments that threaten to take something from her. Slowly, deliberately. She stays inside her own body and does not let the moment have her. Through the floor-to-ceiling glass wall of the restaurant, she can see everything. The tables, the lights, the people. Some have gone back to their food. Some are still watching. The woman near the window is still filming. Sua has said something to the hostess, and they are both looking out at her, and the hostess covers her mouth with her hand and laughs. Amara watches this happen. She watches the hostess laugh. Then she turns around and pushes the door back open and walks inside. The room goes quiet again immediately. A different kind of quiet this time. Di-young is still near the entrance. His composure slips for just a moment when he sees her, a flash of something genuine, surprise, irritation, maybe the beginning of unease before the professional mask slides back into place. Amara looks at him steadily. "I need you to call the police." She says it calmly and precisely. "What your staff just did was assault. I was physically removed from this building while pregnant. I want it on record." Di-young looks at her for a long moment. Around them, the restaurant is completely still. Every eye in the room on this woman standing in the entrance again, rain dripping from her coat onto the floor again, asking for something again. He reaches for the desk phone. "I'll call the police," he says. "They can help escort you from the premises." He dials. Amara stands there and watches him do it. She stands there and understands exactly what is happening, and she lets it happen because she is thinking about the phone across the street at the bus shelter. She noticed it when they shoved her outside. A young man sitting under the shelter's roof with food in one hand and his phone in the other, and the phone pointed at the restaurant entrance. She noticed the angle. She noticed how long he had been there. She noticed that he had been there when she walked in and that he was still there now. She stands there and she waits. Across the street, the young man's name is Kim Yi-won. He is 23 years old. He uploads the video before the police arrive. The caption is simple. "Pregnant black woman physically dragged and thrown out of luxury Seoul restaurant into the rain." The video is 47 seconds long. It has a wide angle. It shows the railing. It shows her hand on her belly. It shows the door closing. The internet does the rest. 42 minutes later, the video has been shared 11,000 times. An hour after that, the number has tripled. By the time the police finish taking statements outside the restaurant and leave without making a single arrest, because Di-young has told his version of events smoothly and confidently, and Amara has no witnesses willing to contradict him in the moment, the video is being discussed in 3 countries. Inside a building in Gangnam that has no sign outside, and no listing in any public directory. On the 42nd floor in a meeting room where powerful men are discussing the movement of more money than most governments see in a year. A phone is placed quietly on the table in front of Jang Hyun-woo. He is 38 years old. He sits at the head of the table the way he sits in every room he enters, not because he positions himself there, but because rooms arrange themselves around him without being asked. He is wearing a charcoal suit made for him specifically by someone in Milan. His hands are folded on the table. He has been speaking for the past 40 minutes in the same measured, unhurried tone he uses for everything, for billion-dollar decisions and minor corrections and every gradation between. The people in this room know his name the way people know the names of things that cannot be argued with. They know him publicly as the founder of JH Holdings, one of the most powerful private investment groups in South Korea. What a much smaller number of people know, and what none of those people discuss in rooms where they are not absolutely certain of every person present, is everything else that Jang Hyun-woo is. The parts of him that did not get built in boardrooms. The parts of him that exist in the specific silence of people who understand that some men are not to be crossed, and that understanding this is a form of survival. His senior aide, Oh Si-jun, enters without knocking. He walks directly to Hyun-woo's side and places a phone face up on the table in front of him. He says nothing. The video is already playing. Hyun-woo watches it once. His face is completely still. The men around the table have gone quiet in the particular way of people who have learned to read the temperature of a room through the behavior of one person in it. He watches it a second time. Something changes in his face. It is not a dramatic change. It is the smallest possible shift, the kind that would be invisible to anyone who didn't know how to look for it. The way the stillness he carries changes quality. The way it moves from the stillness of a controlled man to the stillness of a controlled man deciding something. The two men standing at the back of the room straighten slightly. They have seen that shift before. They know precisely what it means and what will follow it, and they are already paying attention to the room in a different way. Hyun-woo sets the phone down on the table. He looks up. "We're done," he says. "Not we'll continue this tomorrow. Not let's take a break. We're done. 2 words, the meeting is over." He stands, buttons his jacket, walks out. 3 black SUVs pull up outside Jang's 19 minutes later. Engines running. Rain still falling. The doors open, and 4 men step out of the first and third vehicles and position themselves on either side of the entrance without being told where to stand. They move with the particular economy of people who have rehearsed this kind of arrival in 100 different locations. Then Hyun-woo steps out of the middle vehicle. He doesn't look at the restaurant first. He looks at the street. He looks at the pavement. He looks at Amara. She is standing 30 meters away on the wet pavement with 2 police officers beside her. Her coat is soaked completely through. Her hair is flat against her head. One hand is at her side, and the other is pressed against her belly, and she is standing very straight in the rain in the way she has been standing straight through everything that has happened in the past hour, with the particular uprightness of a person who has decided that whatever is taken from them will not include that. He walks to her first. His men fall in around him, without a word. He stops in front of her. The rain is falling on his suit. He doesn't acknowledge it. He looks at her face, at her eyes, at the wet track on her cheek that might be rain and might not be, at her hand on her belly. He looks at all of it and takes it in completely, and something moves through his expression that is too private and too specific for anyone standing nearby to name. He takes off his jacket, places it around her shoulders. His hands are careful and deliberate about it in the way of someone who is using a small gesture to say something that has no adequate words. He looks at Si-jun. "Get her in the car, keep the heat on." Then he turns toward the restaurant. One of the police officers steps forward. "Sir." Hyun-woo looks at him. The officer steps back. Hyun-woo walks through the door of Jang's, and the room changes the moment he enters it. It changes the way rooms change when weather comes in. Not loudly. Not with announcement. A customer near the entrance sees the men come in behind him and leans immediately toward her companion. Her companion turns, looks, and goes very still. At a table near the bar, a man in his 50s recognizes the face and sets his wine glass down with extreme deliberate care, as though he has suddenly remembered that sudden movements can have consequences. Two customers near the window begin gathering their things without discussing it with each other. Hyun-woo doesn't look at any of them. He looks at De-young. De-young has not yet recognized him. He sees a well-dressed man who has walked in without being seated, and his instinct is the instinct of 15 years in luxury hospitality. "Sir, I'm going to need you to wait to be. Why is my wife standing in the rain?" De-young stops. The words reach him one at a time. My wife, standing in the rain. He reassembles them and looks at this man and at the men positioned around him and at the complete and total absence of anything on this man's face that suggests he is uncertain about a single thing. "Sir, the woman who was here earlier was being extremely disruptive. She refused to follow our policy. She was upsetting our guests. We had absolutely no choice but to." Hyun-woo raises one hand. De-young stops speaking as though a switch has been thrown. Hyun-woo looks at one of his men, and the look is barely a look, barely a movement of the eyes, but the man moves immediately toward the back of the restaurant. Two others follow without being asked. De-young watches them walk toward the staff area, toward the back corridor, toward the control room. "Sir, those are restricted areas. You can't simply." Sua's hand closes around De-young's arm. She has recognized him. The name reached her 30 seconds ago, passed from the cashier Han Jae-yoon, who had looked at the man standing in the entrance, and then looked at the man's face again more carefully, and felt something cold move through her chest, and whispered the name to the person beside her, and watched it spread through the room like a current moving through water. Sua heard it. She heard it and looked at Jang Hyun-woo, and understood in the space of 1 second the full architecture of what she had done today, and what it was going to cost her. She leans close to De-young and speaks quickly into his ear. He looks at her, looks at Hyun-woo, looks at Sua again. His face moves through several things rapidly and settles on an expression that has no name, but that is made entirely of the understanding that he has made a catastrophic mistake. Hyun-woo has walked to the reception desk. He turns the computer screen toward him, types something. 3 seconds pass. He turns the screen to face the room. He doesn't speak. He doesn't gesture toward it or direct anyone's attention to it. He simply turns it and steps back. Jae-yoon leans forward first. She reads the screen. Her mouth opens slightly. She reads it again. Then she turns to Sua with an expression that is not quite fear and not quite disbelief, but lives in the space between them and says something in a voice that has dropped to almost nothing. Sua looks at the screen. 60% majority shareholder, Amara Johnson Jang. The hyphen, Johnson Jang. Jang. Sua reads it twice. Her face goes the kind of pale that has nothing to do with the lighting in the room. She turns and looks at De-young, and he has already seen it and already understood it, and the blood has already left his face too. Jae-yoon whispers the name to the waiter standing nearest to her. He looks at the screen, looks at Hyun-woo. The color leaves him so completely and so quickly that he looks like a photograph of himself rather than himself. He takes 1 step backward. The step is involuntary, his body making a decision before his mind has caught up. The information moves through the remaining staff like something physical, like a wave, each person receiving it differently but all of them arriving at the same place. The woman they dragged across the floor, the woman they shoved into the rain, the woman they laughed at through the glass. She owns this building. She owns 60% of everything in this room, including the chairs they are standing next to and the floor beneath their feet. And the man standing in front of them is Jang Hyun-woo. The 2 security guards who dragged Amara across the marble and pushed her out into the rain are standing near the back corridor. They have been watching everything since Hyun-woo walked in with his careful eyes and his careful stillness, and his men who moved through the restaurant without asking anyone's permission. One of them understood who this was 2 minutes ago and has been standing with that understanding sitting in his chest like a stone ever since. His partner understood it 30 seconds later. They take a step backward, then another. There is nowhere to go. They know that. but the body moves anyway because some knowledge is too heavy to stand still under. The waiter who leaned toward his colleague earlier and laughed is standing very still in the middle of the room. He is looking at Amara's name on the screen. He is 24 years old, and he is beginning to understand in the most visceral possible way that some moments follow you out of the rooms they happen in. Di-young makes one more attempt. His voice has lost everything that made it authoritative. Sir, I had absolutely no idea. I can assure you that if we had known who she was, none of this would have. She shouldn't have to be anyone, Hyun-woo says softly, for you to treat her like a human being. The sentence lands in the room and stays there. Nobody speaks. From the back of the restaurant, Hyun-woo's men emerge from the control room with a laptop. They set it on a cleared table near the center of the dining area. The remaining customers who have not already quietly left are still seated. The staff are gathered. Nobody has been asked to watch. Nobody moves to leave. The footage plays. Every camera, every angle, everything. Amara walking in from the rain, the immediate dismissal. The couple behind her being seated without hesitation. The staff gathered together speaking amongst themselves, their faces clearly visible, their expressions unmistakable, their words about a pregnant black woman that they believed she could not understand. Amara's face as she listened to every word and understood every word and showed nothing. The arrival of the guards, the grip on her arm, her voice saying, "Don't touch me, I'm pregnant, please." The drag across the floor, the door, the shove, her hand catching the railing, her hand on her belly in the rain. The woman near the window with her phone raised, filming and laughing. The hostess laughing through the glass. Nobody in the room makes a sound. The security guard who took her arm is shaking, not trembling, shaking, his whole body. He is looking at himself on the screen and something is happening in his face that goes past fear into a place that has no easy name. The waiter who laughed has both hands flat on the table in front of him. He is staring at the screen. His jaw is tight. He looks like a man discovering something about himself that he would have told you an hour ago was not true. Sua is crying, silently. The tears are running down her face without her making any sound or any movement to wipe them away. She is watching herself on the screen, watching her own face, the tilt of her chin, the fold of her arms, the way she looked at Amara after they pushed her outside. Di-young is the only one still standing straight, but his hands are clasped in front of him so tightly that the knuckles have gone white, and the composure on his face is the kind that costs everything to maintain and is costing him everything right now. The footage ends. The room stays silent. Then Hyun-woo's men begin to move through it. Phones, one of them says to the room. No one argues. No one asks why. Every staff member reaches into their pocket. Every customer who is still seated and has a device on the table slides it forward without being asked twice. The phones are collected quickly and completely. Every upload, Si-jun says from beside Hyun-woo, every account, every share, every person who posted the footage of Mrs. Jang is being identified. His voice carries no particular emotion. It doesn't need to. The information itself is sufficient. That is being handled. Di-young's composure finally breaks. It breaks the way things break that have been held together past their capacity, completely, all at once, with nothing gradual about it. He takes a step toward Hyun-woo, and his voice comes out cracked and stripped of everything professional. Sir, please, I have a family. We made a mistake. A terrible, terrible mistake. I am begging you, please. Sua drops to her knees on the restaurant floor. The movement is not dramatic. It is simply the body finding the position that matches the internal state. She is on the marble with her hands pressed together and her head bowed, and she is saying please over and over in a voice that has lost all its shape. The waiter goes down next. He doesn't speak. He kneels and looks at the floor and stays there. The security guards sink down against the wall. One of them has his forehead pressed against his knees. The other is looking at Amara's name still visible on the turned computer screen, and his face has the particular expression of a man who understands that there are some things you do with your hands that your hands never stop being responsible for. Jae-yoon is the only staff member still standing. She is pressed against the wall near the reception desk, and her face is wet, and she is looking at Hyun-woo with eyes that are very wide and very young. "Come with us," one of Hyun-woo's men says to the group. Not a question, not a request. Di-young, Suah, the two security guards, the waiter. They are helped up from their knees and walked toward the door and loaded into vehicles outside with the quiet efficiency of something that has been done before. Nobody explains where they are going. Nobody asks. The restaurant empties quickly after that. Hyun-woo's men take Amara home first. He rides with her. He sits beside her in the back of the SUV with his jacket still around her shoulders and says very little. He holds her hand. She leans against him and says nothing for a while, and he lets her say nothing because he understands that there are things that need to be felt before they can be spoken. When they reach the house, he walks her inside. He tells her he needs to go, that everything is being handled, that she should rest. He says it quietly and with certainty, and she nods, and he gets back into the car. She stands in the bedroom and changes out of her wet clothes slowly. Her back aches. Her hands are still not completely steady. She sits on the edge of the bed and presses both palms flat against her belly and feels her daughter move inside her, small and insistent and entirely unaware. She sits there for a while. Then she gets up and goes to the window. She watches the convoy of cars pull away from the front of the house. She watches them reach the end of the road and turn. She watches the third car. She watches where it goes. It does not turn in the direction of the police station. She watches it until it disappears. She stands at the window with her hand on her belly for a long moment. Then she goes to the wardrobe. She gets dressed carefully. Her back protests. She moves through it. She goes downstairs, opens the front door, gets into the second car parked in the drive, and gives the driver an address on the edge of the city. The warehouse is at the end of an industrial road that has no reason for civilian traffic after dark. Concrete, high windows, a single light above the entrance that casts a pale circle on the wet ground. The kind of building that exists in every city and is passed every day and never looked at. Hyun-woo's men are outside. They see her step out of the car. They look at each other. They straighten. They do not stop her. She walks past them and pushes open the door. Cold air, concrete floor, a single overhead light making everything sharp and shadowless. Di-young is in a chair. His hands are tied behind him. His jacket is gone. The polished authority he wore in the restaurant has been completely removed from him like a costume he was never actually entitled to wear. He looks like what he is, a man who made the wrong decision in the wrong building on the wrong night and is only now understanding the full dimensions of that. Suah is beside him. She has been crying long enough that her face has swollen with it. Her eyes are fixed on the floor. The two security guards are against the wall. One of them has his head tilted back against the concrete and his eyes closed, and he is breathing through his mouth in the slow, deliberate way of someone managing something internal. The other one sees Amara come through the door, and something shifts in his face, something that might be the beginning of understanding what he actually did in that restaurant. Not the version where he was doing his job, but the true version, the one that will live in him from now on. The waiter is in the corner. He is the youngest of them. In this light, in this cold, with his hands bound and the warehouse around him, he looks even younger than he did in the restaurant. He is looking at Amara with something in his eyes that is not quite fear and not quite shame, but is becoming both. Hyun-woo is standing with his back to the door. He turns when he hears her come in. He looks at her. His face moves through several things in rapid succession and settles into something that is not quite calm and not quite anger, but holds both of them. "You should be resting," he says. "You should be at home," she says, "not here." He says nothing. She looks at the people in front of her. She takes her time with it. She lets herself see them fully and completely, not as threats, not as people she needs to protect herself from in this moment, not even as the people who humiliated her, just as people. Frightened, small inside their fear, human in the worst and most ordinary way. She turns to Hyun-woo. "This is not the way," she says. He is watching her. "I know what this place is. I know what you brought them here to do." He doesn't deny it. He doesn't confirm it. He simply watches her in the way he watches things he is deciding about. Hyun-woo. She says his name the way she says it at home, not the name the world uses, the name she uses, the one that means something only inside the life they have built together. He goes still when he hears it the way he always goes still when she says it that way. She crosses the floor to him. She takes his hand and places it against her belly, holds it there. He feels their daughter shift beneath his palm, that small living pressure, entirely present, entirely unaware, entirely real. He looks down at his hand. If you do what you are thinking of doing tonight, she says quietly, it follows our daughter. It follows everything we are building for her. She presses his hand more firmly against her. They humiliated me in my own restaurant. In the rain, while I was carrying your child. She pauses. The world already knows it. It is on camera. It is documented. The police were already called. The records exist. She looks up at him. Let the law do this. Let their names be on a document that never disappears. Let their faces be attached to what they did permanently and publicly, in a way that cannot be erased or buried or explained away. What you would do here tonight, she looks at the warehouse around them, disappears. What I want done to them doesn't. Hyun-woo looks at his hand on her belly for a long time. The warehouse is completely silent. Even the people tied against the wall seem to have stopped breathing. Then he looks up at Si-jun. A single nod. The relief that moves through the room is physical. Di-young lets out a breath that sounds like it has been held for an hour. Sua's shoulders drop. The security guard who had his eyes closed opens them. But they are not free. They are not forgiven. They are not released into the night to go home and recover from the worst evening of their lives. They are taken, properly this time, to face what Amara has asked for. The police who receive them are not the same officers who stood outside Jang's with Amara in the rain, but they receive the same footage, the same phones, the control room recordings, the medical documentation of Amara's pregnancy and the physical handling she endured, formally submitted and certified. The translation of the staff's conversation caught clearly on camera, every word confirmed, every word now evidence. And they receive the witness statement of Lee Min-seo. She is 22 years old. She was working her third week at Jang's the night it happened. She was near the kitchen doors when the security guards dragged Amara across the floor. She took a step forward. She stopped herself. She stood there and watched the door swing open and the rain come in and Amara stumble against the railing, and she did nothing. She has not stopped thinking about it since. She gives her statement voluntarily. She gives it completely. Every word, every detail, every moment she witnessed from the beginning to the end, including the things the camera caught and the things only a person standing in that room could have known. She does not minimize or protect anyone. She tells the truth the way people tell the truth when they have decided that living with the alternative is no longer possible. Her testimony is the most damning piece of evidence in the entire case. It removes every defense. It confirms that the staff knew what they were doing was wrong and chose to continue. It transforms the footage from a recording of events into a documented pattern of deliberate cruelty. Di-young is charged with racially aggravated assault and abuse of authority. The two security guards face criminal charges for physical assault on a pregnant woman. Sua and the waiter face formal discrimination charges. The racial content of the staff conversation captured on the control room footage, translated and certified and submitted, makes every charge significantly more severe. The people who uploaded the video and captioned it with laughing emojis discover within 48 hours that the footage they shared as entertainment is now evidence in a criminal case, and that their identities have been formally documented by a legal team that does not make mistakes and does not stop. The ones who added commentary receive separate and specific attention that has nothing to do with the criminal proceedings and everything to do with ensuring that the choice they made that evening has a permanent shape in their professional lives. Lee Min-seo keeps her job. When the restaurant comes under new management, Amara asks specifically that she be retained. The one person who almost helped deserves the opportunity to become the person who actually helps next time. Amara believes in that. She has always believed that people are not only what they fail to do in their worst moments. They are also what they do afterward. There is no rain on the morning. Amara walks back into Jang's. Clear October sky. The city quiet and bright in the particular way it gets after a sustained rain has finally stopped, and everything has been washed clean, and the light comes back differently, softer and more precise, as though it has been filtered through everything the water carried away. She gets out of the car slowly. The baby came 9 days ago, healthy and loud and completely certain of her own importance. Amara stood in the hospital room the morning after and thought about the story her daughter had already been part of without knowing it. She decided then that her daughter would grow up knowing all of it. The rain and the railing and the warehouse and the choice her father made when his hand was pressed against her, and her mother spoke to him in the dark. She walks toward the entrance. The door opens before she reaches it. A new receptionist. Young woman, straight posture, eyes that meet Amara's directly and stay there. Mrs. Jang, good morning, your table is ready. Amara steps inside. The floors are the same marble. The light is the same warm gold. The restaurant looks exactly as it did the evening she stood at this entrance, dripping rain onto the floor, while a woman behind this desk told her she didn't meet the dress code. While 2 security guards dragged her across this floor. While people sitting at these tables held up their phones and laughed. She walks slowly, past the reception desk, past the hostess station, past the table near the window where a woman sat with her phone raised and her face full of amusement at something that was not amusing. She sits at the best table, the one with the full view of the street. A server is beside her immediately, warm, present, genuine in the way that cannot be performed. Tea, Amara says, thank you. She rests her hands on the table, looks out through the glass at the street, at the pavement where she stood with her hand on her belly and the door closed behind her, at the bus shelter across the street where a young man sat with his dinner and his phone and decided that what he was watching mattered enough to document. She thinks about Jang Hyun-woo's hand on her belly in the warehouse, the way he went completely still, the way that particular stillness was different from every other kind of stillness she has seen in him over the years, heavier and more deliberate, the stillness of a man choosing something against his own nature because someone he loved asked him to. She thinks about what she said to him, what you would do here disappears, what I want done doesn't. She thinks about Di-young's name on a court document, about Sua's face attached to a formal charge that will not go away, about the 2 security guards who are discovering that there are things you do with your hands that your hands never stop belonging to. She thinks about Lee Min-seo somewhere in this building, starting her shift. The tea arrives. She wraps both hands around the cup, feels the warmth of it move through her palms. She looks out at the clear morning, and she does not feel triumph, and she does not feel anger. She does not feel the particular exhaustion of a person who has spent too long fighting for something that should never have required a fight. She feels like a woman, sitting in her own restaurant on a clear morning drinking tea. Which is exactly what she is. Which is exactly what she was the night she pushed through the door in the rain and stood on the marble floor and asked for a chair and 5 minutes. She just had to wait for the rest of the world to remember it. So here is the question this story leaves with you. When you see something happening in front of you that you know is wrong, will you be the person who reaches for their phone to record it as entertainment? Or will you be the person who understands that what they are watching belongs to all of us? Because the Amaras of this world should never have to stand in the rain to prove they belong somewhere they already own. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you are not yet part of the Black Diamond Story family, hit that subscribe button now. More stories like this one are coming.